Welcome, everyone. Today, we are not talking about motivation. We are not talking about loud confidence. We are not talking about showing off. Today, we are talking about something deeper. We are talking about learning like a spy. A spy does not grow loudly. A spy does not reveal everything. A spy does not react emotionally. A spy observes. A spy analyzes. A spy adapts. A spy improves in silence. And if you apply this strategic mindset to your life, you will operate at a completely different level. Most people move through life carelessly. They speak too soon, they reveal too much, they react too fast, they learn too slowly. But a strategic mind moves differently. A strategic mind studies people, studies patterns, studies weaknesses, studies opportunities, before others even realize what is happening. If you want real power, not fake power, you must learn to think quietly, observe deeply, and move intelligently. And as you watch this video, you are not only learning strategy, you are also improving your English by listening to clear and powerful ideas. If you want to grow your mind and your English together, make sure you subscribe and stay with this channel for more personal development content. Chapter 1. Observe before you speak. This is where real intelligence begins. Most people think confidence means speaking first. It doesn't. Confidence is knowing when to stay silent. When you enter a room, what do most people do? They talk, they try to impress, they share opinions quickly, they argue without understanding. But a spy never enters a situation loudly. A spy studies first. Who holds influence here? Who is insecure? Who talks the most? Who listens carefully? What is the emotional atmosphere? Observation gives information. Information gives advantage. And advantage gives control. When you speak immediately, you reveal your knowledge level, your emotional triggers, your opinions, your weaknesses. But when you observe first, you collect. And collecting gives you clarity. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you join a new workplace. On the first day, one person starts complaining loudly about management. Another person is overly friendly with everyone. Another person barely speaks but watches everything. If you speak too early and support the wrong person, you may align yourself with negativity. But if you observe for a few days, you will notice patterns. Who gets promoted? Who is trusted? Who influences decisions? Now you move intelligently. That is learning like a spy. Observation is not just about seeing, it is about noticing details, tone of voice, body language, energy shifts in conversation, who becomes defensive when questioned, who avoids eye contact. These small details reveal more than words. Most people miss these signals because they are busy talking. When you observe deeply, you understand people faster. And when you understand people, you move smarter. Silence makes people underestimate you. And being underestimated is powerful. When people think you are quiet, they reveal more around you. They relax, they speak freely, they show their real personality, and you learn. Strategic silence is not weakness, it is data collection. How to practice this daily? You don't need a special mission. Practice this in normal life to improve your social intelligence. In meetings, speak last. In arguments, pause before responding. In social gatherings, listen carefully for 5 minutes before adding your opinion. Notice who dominates conversation. Notice who seeks approval. Notice who becomes uncomfortable with silence. Every situation becomes a classroom, and you become sharper without anyone noticing. Think about 2 students in a class. One student always answers first. He speaks quickly, confidently. The other student listens carefully to every answer before speaking. By the time the second student speaks, he has heard mistakes, gaps, and ideas. His answer becomes stronger because it is informed. Who has more advantage? The one who speaks first, or the one who observes and then speaks with precision? Observation creates precision. Precision creates impact. When you observe before speaking, you stop reacting blindly. You start responding strategically. And that single habit can change your entire life. Because the person who understands the environment always has more power than the person who reacts emotionally inside it. Chapter 2. Gather information quietly. If observation is the eyes of a spy, then information is the weapon. But here is the important rule. A spy never announces what they are learning. Most people learn loudly. They say, I'm researching this. I'm planning something. I'm going to do this. But when you speak too soon, you lose advantage. Because once others know your plan, they can interfere, compete, criticize, discourage, or copy. A spy focuses on gathering information silently. They collect facts, they study patterns, they connect dots, and no one even realizes they are preparing. When you gather information quietly, you avoid unnecessary opinions. You avoid negative energy. You avoid distraction. You create clarity before action, and clarity is rare. Most people act before understanding. That is why they fail repeatedly. But when you understand deeply before moving, your decisions become precise. Information is not just facts, it is understanding people's motivations, understanding systems, understanding rules, understanding weaknesses, understanding timing. For example, before starting a business, most people jump in because they feel excited. But someone who engages in strategic planning quietly will study who is already succeeding. Why are they succeeding? Where are customers dissatisfied? What mistakes do beginners make? What skills are truly required? By the time they act, they are not guessing. They are prepared. Imagine a young man who wants to get promoted in his company. Most employees work hard and hope to be noticed. But this man decides to learn like a spy. Instead of talking about his ambition, he observes. He notices, who does the boss trust? What kind of communication style does the boss respect? What projects get recognition? What mistakes cause criticism? He studies past promotions. He studies the company culture. He studies how meetings are run. For months, he gathers information quietly. He adjusts his behavior strategically. He communicates in a way that aligns with leadership expectations. He takes on tasks that bring visibility. He avoids behaviors that hurt reputation. When promotion time comes, it looks like luck. But it was not luck. It was silent preparation. While others complained about favoritism, he studied the system. That is the difference. The hardest part of gathering information quietly is controlling ego. You will want to tell people, I know this. I discovered this. I'm planning something big. But silence is power, and it multiplies your effectiveness. Because when you speak too early, you release pressure. When you stay silent, you build pressure. And pressure creates impact. Remember this. Talk is relief. Silence is leverage. When you gather information quietly, you move from emotional reaction to strategic action. And that changes everything. Chapter 3. Control emotions. A spy without emotional control is dangerous, not to others but to himself. Because emotions reveal position. When you react emotionally, you expose your fears, your triggers, your insecurities, your weaknesses. And once exposed, you can be manipulated. Most people believe power means dominance. It doesn't. Real power means stability. If someone insults you and you explode, they now control you. If someone criticizes you and you become defensive, they now control you. If someone provokes you and you lose focus, they now control you. Emotional intelligence means no one can move you without your permission. Reaction feels strong, but it is weakness because reaction is automatic. Response is strategic. A spy never reacts automatically. They pause, they analyze. Is this worth energy? Is this a distraction? What is the bigger goal? If something does not serve the mission, it does not deserve emotion. Imagine a professional athlete during a championship game. The opponent tries to provoke him. They trash talk, they insult, they try to trigger anger. If the athlete reacts emotionally, he loses focus. He makes mistakes, he gets penalties. But if he remains calm, the opponent becomes frustrated. The opponent wastes energy trying to disturb him. Meanwhile, the calm athlete stays focused on the game. He wins not just because of skill, but because of mental strength. In life, it is the same. If someone criticizes your work, you can react emotionally and argue, or pause, listen, analyze if the criticism has value, adjust if necessary, and continue forward. One path drains energy, the other path builds strength. It is not natural, it is trained. You train it by pausing before responding, breathing when angry, delaying reactions, choosing long-term goals over short-term satisfaction. Each time you choose calm over reaction, you strengthen your mind. And the stronger your mind becomes, the harder you are to manipulate. Remember this clearly. If someone can control your emotions, they control your direction. But if you master your emotions, you control your future. Chapter 4. Adapt to any environment. A spy survives not because he is the strongest. He survives because he adapts. Most people try to force the environment to match them. If the room is serious, they still joke. If the room is competitive, they become insecure. If the environment changes, they panic. But a strategic mind studies the environment first, and then adjusts using adaptability skills. Adaptation is not fake behavior. It is intelligent behavior. It means understanding the rules of the room, understanding the emotional temperature, understanding what works here and what does not. Rigid people break under pressure. Flexible people rise. Think about this carefully. Water takes the shape of the container. It does not argue with the container. It adjusts. And because it adjusts, it flows anywhere. But a rock does not adjust. And when force hits it, it cracks. Most people behave like rocks. They say, "This is just who I am." But a spy understands something deeper. Your core values stay the same. Your external behavior adapts strategically for workplace success. If you are in a formal setting, you speak formally. If you are in a creative space, you loosen your tone. If you are in a competitive environment, you sharpen your focus. This is not weakness. This is mastery. To adapt well, you must notice how people communicate, what behavior is rewarded, what behavior is rejected, how authority functions, how decisions are made. Without observation, adaptation becomes guessing. With observation, adaptation becomes precision. That is why Chapter 1 and Chapter 4 connect. You observe first, then you adapt. Imagine a young professional who moves from a small company to a large corporate organization. In his old job, everything was informal. He could joke with managers. He could speak casually in meetings. In the new company, the culture is different. Meetings are structured. Communication is precise. Hierarchy matters. If he behaves the same way as before, he will appear immature. But instead of resisting the environment, he studies it. He notices how senior leaders speak. He observes how emails are written. He watches how meetings are conducted. Within weeks, he adjusts his tone. He becomes more structured. He speaks less but more clearly. He prepares before meetings. Now he fits the environment. He did not change who he is. He changed how he operates. That is adaptation strategies in action. And adaptation protects growth. Some people fear adapting because they think it means losing identity. It does not. You can keep your values while adjusting your strategy. A spy does not forget who he is. He simply understands where he is. And the person who understands context always moves smarter than the person who ignores it. Adaptability is survival. Adaptability is intelligence. Adaptability is long-term power. Chapter 5. Train daily in silence. Most people love visible effort. They announce their goals. They post their plans. They talk about their ambitions. But a spy trains in silence. No applause, no validation, no attention. Because real skill does not need noise. When you train loudly, you seek external approval. When you train silently, you build self-discipline. And internal discipline is stronger. Silence removes distraction. When no one is watching, your excuses disappear. When no one is praising, your ego stays small. When no one expects, you can focus purely on improvement. There is something else powerful about silent growth. It creates surprise. If everyone knows you are preparing, they are ready. But if you grow quietly, your results speak suddenly. And sudden growth shocks people. More importantly, silent training builds resilience. Because when nobody claps, you must clap for yourself. That builds internal motivation. What does silent training look like? It means practicing skills without announcing them, improving weaknesses privately, studying when others are relaxing, working when others are complaining. It means choosing progress over attention. Most people chase recognition. Few chase mastery. Spies chase mastery. Imagine a student preparing for a competitive exam. Most students constantly talk about how hard they are studying. They discuss strategies. They complain about difficulty. They compare progress. But one student does something different. He does not talk about preparation. He studies consistently. He reviews mistakes daily. He strengthens weak subjects privately. He practices under time conditions. When results are announced, people are surprised. How did he do so well? But there was no miracle. There was silent training. While others were performing preparation publicly, he was building capability privately. That is the difference. Training in silence teaches you to rely on yourself, to focus without validation, to tolerate loneliness, to stay disciplined without praise. That is rare strength. Most people need constant feedback. But a spy is comfortable alone. Because alone is where refinement happens. Remember this clearly. Noise creates attention. Silence creates power. The world sees results. The world rarely sees preparation. But personal growth requires preparation. Chapter 6. The cover identity. A cover identity does not mean lying. It does not mean being fake. It means understanding that not everyone deserves full access to you. A spy never reveals full capability, not because he is weak, but because exposure reduces advantage. In life, many people reveal everything: their plans, their ambitions, their emotions, their strategies, their weaknesses, and then they wonder why they are attacked, judged, copied, or sabotaged. Information is power. And when you reveal all your information, you give away leverage. When people know your next move, they prepare against you. When people know your weakness, they exploit it. When people know your emotional triggers, they press them. A cover identity means you decide what to reveal. You decide what to protect. You decide what to keep internal. It is controlled transparency, not secrecy from fear, but discretion from intelligence. When others cannot fully read you, you create uncertainty. Uncertainty creates caution, and caution creates respect. People behave differently around someone they cannot easily predict. That unpredictability, when calm and controlled, creates quiet authority. But if you constantly overshare, you become easy to understand, easy to label, easy to manipulate. This is a core part of protecting your privacy. A spy is never emotionally naked in front of strangers. He observes first. He tests trust slowly. He reveals strategically. Selective expression is a skill. It means you do not respond to every insult. You do not share every dream. You do not explain every decision. You do not defend every criticism. Sometimes silence protects more than explanation. Sometimes neutrality protects more than reaction. The world does not need constant access to your internal world. That is private territory. Imagine a young entrepreneur starting a new venture. He has an innovative idea. Excited, he shares the full concept with many acquaintances. Some respond negatively. Some laugh. One copies the idea and launches faster. Now he feels betrayed. But imagine a different approach. Instead of announcing the full vision, he shares small, neutral pieces. He builds quietly. He protects core strategy. He tests with limited trusted people. When he finally launches, it is complete. It is protected. It is refined. No one could interfere because no one had full access. That is cover identity in action, not deception, protection. This chapter is not about isolation. It is about controlled access. Trust slowly, reveal gradually, protect strategically. You do not owe the world your full blueprint. Strength is not in exposure. Strength is in setting boundaries. Chapter 7. Debriefing. The art of self-analysis. After every mission, a spy debriefs. He does not celebrate blindly. He does not blame emotionally. He analyzes what worked, what failed, what was predictable, what was unexpected, what can improve. Most people skip this step. They move from action to distraction. They repeat mistakes because they never studied them. Debriefing turns experience into intelligence. Without reflection, experience is wasted. When you fail and do not analyze, you only feel pain. When you fail and analyze, you gain strategy. When you succeed and do not analyze, you feel lucky. When you succeed and analyze, you build repeatable systems. Self-reflection converts emotion into data, and data improves performance. Regret says, I am stupid. Review says, what pattern caused this mistake? Regret attacks identity. Review improves behavior. Spies never attack themselves emotionally. They detach. They observe their own actions like an outsider. They study their performance calmly. That emotional detachment creates growth. It means asking structured questions. What was my goal? Did I prepare properly? Where did I hesitate? Where did emotion interfere? What skill gap appeared? What will I change next time? It is honest, but not self-destructive. It is objective, not dramatic. Many people avoid reflection because it is uncomfortable. But discomfort is growth in disguise. Most people stay average because they repeat without reflecting. They act, they move on. They never study their own patterns. A spy studies everything, including himself. When you become both the player and the analyst, you accelerate growth. Debriefing builds self-awareness. Self-awareness builds correction. Correction builds mastery. Chapter 8. Study weakness like intelligence data. Most people are afraid of their weaknesses. They hide them. They deny them. They feel ashamed of them. A spy does the opposite. A spy treats weakness like intelligence data. Data is not emotional. Data is not embarrassing. Data is useful. When something goes wrong, the spy does not say, I am a failure. He says, there is a flaw in the system. Where is it? This shift in thinking changes everything. Here is where most people collapse. They confuse performance with identity. If they fail at something, they say, I am bad at this. If they struggle, they say, I am not talented. But a strategic mind separates identity from performance. Performance can improve. Identity is stable. If you treat weakness emotionally, it becomes heavy. If you treat weakness analytically, it becomes manageable. And manageable problems can be solved. A spy never panics when a mission fails. He investigates. What assumption was wrong? What information was missing? What skill was underdeveloped? What preparation was incomplete? This creates continuous improvement instead of insecurity. Most people avoid their weak areas. They focus only on strengths. But avoiding weakness creates blind spots, and blind spots are dangerous. Studying weakness closes blind spots. To study your weakness, you need maturity. You must be able to look at yourself without ego. No drama, no self-hate, no excuses, just clarity. For example, if you struggle with communication, do not say people don't understand me. Instead ask, is my message clear? Do I speak too fast? Do I listen enough? Do I organize thoughts properly? That is intelligence. Weakness is not an enemy. It is information waiting to be decoded. Imagine a young athlete who consistently loses in the final round of competitions. Instead of saying, I am unlucky, he records his matches. He studies his performance. He notices something specific. In the final rounds, he becomes impatient. He rushes decisions. His breathing becomes irregular. His movements become less controlled. Now he has data. He trains specifically for high-pressure situations. He practices breathing techniques. He simulates final round stress during training. Next season, he performs differently, not because he became magically stronger, but because he focused on overcoming weaknesses like intelligence data. And that changed the outcome. If you apply this principle in life, you stop fearing mistakes, you stop hiding flaws, you stop repeating errors blindly. You become your own analyst. And the person who can study himself calmly is extremely difficult to defeat because improvement becomes continuous. Weakness becomes a tool, not a wound. Chapter 9. Listen more than you talk. Most people talk to feel important. Very few listen to gain understanding. Talking releases energy. Listening gathers power. When you talk, you reveal. When you listen, you collect. You collect information, intentions, insecurities, hidden motivations, contradictions. People reveal far more than they realize when they speak freely. But if you interrupt constantly, if you dominate conversation, you miss valuable signals. A spy listens not just to words, but to tone, pauses, hesitations, and emphasis. Listening gives access to depth. When you speak less, people project more. They assume things, they fill silence. They try to explain themselves further. And the more they explain, the more you understand. But if you talk constantly, you lose that advantage. Listening also slows emotional reaction. When you focus on active listening, you reduce impulsive response. You create thinking space. And thinking space creates intelligent response. People trust those who listen. If you allow someone to speak fully, without interruption, without judgment, they feel respected. Respect builds influence. Influence builds authority. Authority builds impact. All from listening. If you gather more perspectives, you reduce blind spots. Many bad decisions happen because someone spoke too early without understanding all variables. Listening expands context. Expanded context improves strategy. Imagine a negotiation strategy between two business partners. One partner dominates the conversation. He speaks aggressively. He pushes his terms quickly. The other partner listens carefully. He asks questions. He lets the other person explain their position fully. He studies tone changes. He notices hesitation when certain numbers are mentioned. From listening alone, he understands where flexibility exists, where insecurity exists, where emotional attachment exists. When it is his turn to speak, he targets precisely. He proposes terms aligned with hidden concerns. The negotiation ends in his favor. Not because he spoke louder, but because he listened better. Listening requires restraint. Restraint requires ego control. You must resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the urge to prove yourself. Resist the urge to respond immediately. That restraint builds mental strength, and mental strength builds strategic advantage. The person who listens deeply understands deeply. The person who understands deeply moves precisely. And precision wins more than noise ever will. Chapter 10, Control Emotions Before They Control You. Without emotional control, observation collapses. Listening becomes biased. Adaptation becomes forced. Debriefing becomes self-attack. Emotions are powerful, but unmanaged emotions are dangerous. A spy is not emotionless. A spy is emotionally disciplined. There is a difference. Many people misunderstand this. They think controlling emotions means hiding feelings. That is not control. That is suppression. Suppression builds pressure. Control builds clarity. Emotional regulation means you feel the emotion. You recognize it. You choose your response consciously, instead of the emotion choosing for you. Most people operate in reaction mode. Someone criticizes them. They react instantly. Someone disrespects them. They explode. Someone ignores them. They overthink. Their emotions decide their actions. And when emotions control actions, consistency disappears. You cannot be strategic if you are emotionally unstable. You cannot be sharp if anger blinds you. You cannot think clearly if fear controls you. A spy understands that the greatest battlefield is not external. It is internal. One powerful principle in emotional control is delay. Never make important decisions in peak emotion, not in extreme anger, not in extreme excitement, not in extreme fear. Because peak emotion narrows thinking. It reduces perspective. When emotion is high, intelligence drops. A spy delays reaction. He waits. He evaluates. He cools the internal temperature. Then he acts. When you stay calm under pressure, people notice. When others panic and you remain steady, you gain silent authority. Calmness signals stability. Stability signals strength, and strength commands respect. But emotional instability signals unpredictability, and unpredictability reduces trust. This is why leaders, negotiators, and high performers train emotional control. Because without it, skill is useless. Imagine a manager leading a team during a crisis. A major project fails. Deadlines are missed. Clients are angry. The team is stressed. If the manager reacts emotionally, shouting, blaming, panicking, the team becomes more unstable. Fear spreads. Confidence collapses. But imagine instead the manager pauses. He listens to the situation fully. He speaks calmly. He says, "We made mistakes. Let's break this down step by step." He separates emotion from analysis. He assigns responsibility without aggression. He focuses on solutions instead of blame. The team stabilizes. Why? Because emotional control created clarity, and clarity created direction. That is power. They quit in frustration. They speak words they later regret. A spy always asks, does this emotional reaction serve the mission? If not, it is discarded. Emotions are temporary. Consequences are permanent. Strategic minds prioritize consequences over impulses. This is not automatic. It requires pausing before speaking, breathing before reacting, questioning your internal story, asking, what is the smartest move here? Each time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen mental muscles. Over time, calm becomes natural. And when calm becomes natural, you become dangerous in a good way. Because you cannot be manipulated easily. You cannot be provoked easily. You cannot be destabilized easily. Emotional control is not just about staying calm in public. It is about managing internal narratives. When something goes wrong, your mind creates stories. They don't respect me. I am not good enough. This always happens to me. A spy challenges those stories. He asks, is this fact or is this emotion speaking? This separation protects mental clarity. Clarity protects direction. Direction protects progress. When you master emotional control, you think clearly under pressure. You respond instead of react. You protect relationships. You protect opportunities. You protect reputation. You protect long-term goals. Emotional control is internal armor, and internal armor is stronger than external force. Now, vanish into the shadows like a true operative, but leave a like and subscribe on your way out. It's the only evidence we promise not to destroy.